Welcome back to Digiburst, guys. Last weekend I played in the Digimon TCG Oceanic Championship and came 48th. Now if you just want to see my deck list, it'll be annotated right here, jump to that timestamp, or if you want to see my matchup explanations, they'll be linked right there. But before all that, I need to say thank you so much to number one, my friend Greg, who helped me build my deck, borrow cards, pretty much the entire deck actually, and go through potential matchups and strategies and playtest for the last couple of days. It was absolutely amazing what you could do for me, and the experience that I got from that really showed in this event and really brought me this far to a very satisfying 48th place. Thank you so much for helping me build my deck and putting all that time into getting me where I was. I absolutely definitely would not have made it as far as I did without your help. So thank you so much, Greg. That was honestly really amazing. Number two, thank you so much for all the other players at the event that recognized me and congratulated me on my progress and my videos. It was really humbling to hear that you guys actually give me feedback like that, because I honestly never realized just how much of a voice I had in this community. I know this community is quite small compared to other TCGs, but to hear that a channel with less than 700 subscribers is recognized by almost half of my opponents, and then having them say that they actually like my videos, yeah, it was quite it kind of touched me a little bit. So yeah, it's nice to feel that I'm having an impact in the Digimon community, and hopefully I'm keeping people involved and helping them enjoy this game. This TCG is honestly the best TCG I've ever played, the most fun TCG I've ever played, and the best community I've ever been in, both in locals and in the online community. It's honestly really satisfying to see that you guys are liking what I'm giving you just as much as I'm enjoying this experience within the community. So thank you so much for that. And then finally, I just want to say thank you for everyone who watches the videos, not just in the tournament that I just had, but also for you guys that watch me every week. Maybe just occasionally you click on my videos that might interest you. I just want to say thank you for giving me this outlet to be creative, but also feel like I'm being involved in boosting this TCG, because I really want to see Digimon succeed and actually compete with the likes of Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Magic, all that. Yeah, I want to see Digimon beat them out, because it's honestly such a unique and rewarding game to play with so much back and forth. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about my tournament experience. So, of course, like I said, I came 48th. There was roughly 370 players at round one of the event. So measuring that percentages, that's roughly the top 13%. That's a statistic I can be really happy with. As a content creator for Digimon and building my channel up, there is quite a bit of pressure that you can put on yourself to feel like you need to be the absolute best at the game, because if people are watching you, then people should be watching the best, and that's something I do believe in. But I also believe that as an individual, you should be able to play how you enjoy the game. So if you've watched the previous video, I mentioned that I had experienced a bit of fatigue having been training for this specific event for the last couple of weeks. And while I said at that time that highly competitive play isn't something that's for me, I still agree with that. It was incredibly stressful planning for this event because of the pressure that I put on myself as a content creator. But actually playing in nationals, or championship finals I should say, for Oceanics, I had a hugely different experience than what I thought I would have. It was surreal how friendly and welcoming and generally laid back, actually, all my competitors were, all my opponents were. Everyone wanted to see each other succeed. Even the opponents wanted me to do well, and I wanted my opponents to do well. It was hugely different to how I've experienced other competitions before training for this event. It was, oh gosh, it was so nice. It was so nice. If every Digimon event was like that, I would play as competitively as I could. Or maybe I would just play casual just to experience it. Because, yeah, it was a really fun experience. And it's a kind of environment that could easily be a not fun environment. Plus 9 hours of straight rounds of Digimon can be really, really exhausting. Well, for any card game, really. Especially when you're at home staring at a computer. You're not surrounded by friends that are also competing at the event, where you can't trade, you can't talk. There's not too many outlets to talk about your matchups, your experiences. In between games, I pretty much left the room, had something to eat, rehydrated myself, talked to my partner, watched a little bit of TV, and then came back to my game. So while that was really good for like recharging your battery in terms of like having a little bit of normal life and then coming back to the competition, I guess that was good to recharge and sort of refresh yourself from the exhaustion of continuous card game playing. But that sort of environment where you're just at home playing long games of card games, staring at your screen, watching your opponent like a hawk to make sure they're playing correctly, that can easily be a non-friendly environment. And honestly, I'm really happy that it wasn't. The Oceanics Nationals was really, really fun, and I think that just gives credit to this community that we built, you guys and as content creators leading the pack. This community, as a TCG, is wildly friendly and welcoming and so much fun. And I'm so glad that I get to be involved in it. It's really funny how it all worked out, because I honestly stressed much more practicing for the event than I did actually being in the event. So maybe that really helped me elevate myself to my my spot that I was really satisfied with. So after all that gushiness, I guess I'll go on to the matchups. So I went X2-1, which means in 8 rounds, I won 5 matches, lost 2 matches, and I drew 1 match. I went undefeated until the 5th match, where I had my first loss. So the first 3 games, I had 3 wins. So that was against Diaboromon, 3 Musketeers, and my friend, who was also playing this in the same deck as me. So the first 2 matchups, my deck, being honest, my deck cleaned out pretty easily. I think the 3 Musketeer player was unlucky with their draws, and bricked pretty hard in the first 2 games. So I sweep that rather easily. And in round 1, that was Diaboromon. The player was incredibly friendly. Was the perfect opponent I could have asked for round 1, because of how friendly they were. It really set the tone for the entire competition, because I was so nervous going in, because I felt like I had so much pressure on myself as a content creator, that having her be so friendly and be so welcoming, and really so chill, that it really just calmed my nerves a little bit, and realized that, yeah, this is all just, we're just sitting around playing card games. So that was really helpful, and I really want to thank her for... So if you are watching this, thank you so much for setting the tone for the tournament, because I was a nervous wreck, and also thank you for the rest of the Oceanic players, because you guys were just like her, super welcoming, super helpful, and I was really happy for the environment that she created in this event. So round 3, I played against a friend also playing a mirror match. So spoilers, I was playing Gabobond with a little bit of Mechanorimon teched in. So the Mechanorimon actually helped me counter this mirror match here against Gabobond to lock out the security hits that a Gabobond player normally does with rookie rushing styles. So Gabobond was hugely successful in that. Mechanorimon was hugely successful in that, just as it was in the Diaboromon match, as well as the Three Musketeer match. Going back to the Three Musketeer match, while the opponent was unlucky with their draws, I can say that I think I played incredibly skillfully, setting up Kendo to attack my opponent's security and often living, because it hits into some rookies that are really, really weak, or some deputy mons that also don't compete with it. And flipping their level 3s back to the hand so that they can't set up their graveyard with the Demi-Mirror milling effects, or with the Demi-Mirror discarding effects, the Impmon milling effects, was really, really a good call. Yeah, I sealed out that match pretty well. Back to my friend with the Gabumon Spice. He was also playing the Mechanorimons, but I guess I just opened with them at the right time. He also had the he was also playing the Magdramons to heal back his security, so he could just keep using his bond and not worry about losing too much in security. That was generally a good strategy, except his Ice Walls I don't think were timed at the best time. Sometimes he would put Ice Walls just to set me on 1, even though I wasn't in a good spot to attack, so I wasn't going to attack anyway. It might have just been better for him to use his Ice Walls at more opportune times when your opponent has built a board, and you can exploit the fact that he was going to attack on that turn, and now he can't go for game. In match 4, I went up against Security Control. This was, again, opponent was super friendly. I'm so happy that we have players like that in Oceanics. Even while playing Security Control, we were still really happy with how everything, how we were able to banter between players and actually build a little bit of a relationship. In round 4, Security Control, I won the first game by, as you do with against Security Control, just building up resources, setting up lots of tamers, getting your hybrids in your hand ready to go for a big push, holding your Hammer Sparks to do that big push, and hopefully being lucky in security and doing the big push when they're on 4 security, and hopefully those 4 security don't have big bombs to it that will hurt you. My tech card of blue needs to have some kind of removal, and while some players rely on Rattlestar or Cocoidus Breath, I was using Absolute Blast, and Absolute Blast was absolutely amazing in this matchup. It helped me remove a bunch of threats that were threatening my security, and so I could last long enough to push for game. So I took game 1 that way, and at that point we were halfway through time. We were about 25 minutes in. So as a competitive player, you have to take all your potential strategies in mind. There was a time where I was considering, I've won game 1, Security Control can take a while. If I play super defensively, there is potential where we can go into time, and if we don't resolve that game in time, then that game was a draw. And if I win game 1 and game 2 was a draw, then I'll win the match completely. But I personally threw that strategy right out the window. Yeah, I personally don't find that strategy to be a fair strategy. If you're here to play that card game, you should be here to win the card game. Well, of course, having fun is the main objective. Winning in a card game should be the objective and not just stalling for time. So I tried to play as quickly as possible, but my opponent was able to set up in game 2 all 4 of his reinforcing memory boosts turn after turn after turn. So him healing consistently and getting holy waves out of security was really strong. And while I was able to do chip damage, I couldn't last out the pressure that he was able to put out. And with only 5 minutes left on the clock, I knew that he was going to win within the next 2 turns. So if we played out those 2 turns, we would have went the time, but with the additional 5 minutes or extra 3 turns, my opponent would have won that game. So I decided I'm going to scoop it up here. I'm going to forfeit that game, so he'll take the second game win, and we'll go into game 3. And if I can luck out and play as quickly as possible and just rookie mush my opponent, then maybe I can grab that win and be happy that I didn't go for the stalling route. But unfortunately, he was able to heal a little bit and set up blocker with Mechanorimon, and I couldn't beat that out. So round 4 ended up being a draw, unfortunately. I still stand by my decision that going for the win was the right thing to do, simply because morally, if you're here to play card games, you should be going for the win. And stalling is just kind of scummy, and I didn't want to be that player, honestly. So taking the draw is fine, and hopefully we can continue just taking wins, and it would be fine just having a draw. On to round 5, that was my first loss. I went up against Lilith Loop. This was probably the deck that I had the least amount of experience in. There were a lot of effects that, while I knew about, I didn't know the exact interactions with, or I wasn't completely familiar with them. So I didn't play the most optimally to counter my opponent. I only played most optimally to, I think, how my deck worked. So if I was more familiar with the Lilith Loop deck, then I might have been able to win that one with the draws that I had. But unfortunately, I just didn't see it. There was a particular moment in Game 2 where I had game on board, but when I swung in with the Gabby Bond, I hit a Jack Raid, which forces the turn pass because I was on 1 memory. At the moment when I was swinging, I was counting the Jack Raids, and when they were doing card searching effects to reveal the top and then grabbing a card, I saw that 2 of the Jack Raids through those effects were being put on the bottom of the deck. So I felt pretty confident that maybe there was 1 Jack Raid still in hand and 1 somewhere in the middle of the deck. So having 1 security being the exact top, being the Jack Raid, it was rather unlucky, but that's Digimon. It happens sometimes. Or TCGs, there is an element of luck, and in this one it happened to be the Jack Raid insecurity. So congratulations to my opponent, you played incredibly well. On to round 6. I played against a Gabardon Mirror. This was the one where Mechanorimon really shined in. Hard-playing Mechanorimon for only 4 costs was really nice to counter. Rookie Rush strategies really stalled my opponent out, because the only way the Gabardon player can get past Mechanorimon is with some removal card like Cocotus Breath or Absolute Blast, or they can remove it through Gabardon. But they need to have the setup for Gabardon. So if you get the Mechanorimon very early and they don't have the pieces like the Mat or the Gabardon, then the Mechanorimons are actually a huge obstacle for that deck. And in that way I was able to beat out my opponent. In Game 2 there was a time where he was threatening lethal with the Gabardon, returning my Mechanorimon back to deck, I think. And when he was swinging, he had a Madoki Beatamon set up so that when I would gain memory off a Hammer Spark or an Ice Wall in my security, I wouldn't get that effect. And that wouldn't make him force the pass turn. But I was, again, quite lucky in my security, revealing an Absolute Blast. Absolute Blast can put Madoki Beatamon at the bottom of their deck, and then, lucky me, the next security check was a Ice Wall, which gained me 2 memory, which means he couldn't spend the memory to go into Lobomon for game. So I was quite lucky with the way that turned out. And then after that turn, I was then able to push out my rookies and swing for game. So yeah, that was round 6. At that point, I had 4 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw, and I needed to secure the next 2 wins to earn my spot in top 16. Round 7, I went against Jessamon. I feel like I played this one really well. In this particular matchup, Gabry has a natural advantage over Jessamon, simply because Jessamon has to set up a little bit, needs a little bit more setup in order to do the things that they want to do. And if you're able to hit in security and survive, then you're gaining huge advantages to be able to hit security again. And that was my plan with Octomon, getting in a very cheap 7,000 DP hit into security. Most likely it's going to survive unless it runs into a level 5 or 6 or 7. And then being able to guarantee it can live again was really nice. Kendo Gurumon also put in work to put level 3s back in hand, forcing the opponent to lose the memory that it spent hard playing them. So that was really nice. Now, round 8 was the last round. There were a couple of draws at the top, so we didn't go the full 9 rounds, but we did play until one player was completely undefeated. So that's why we went into round 8. Round 8 was another mirror match with Gabry. This was my 3rd Gabry mirror match, and this one I was unlucky. First, props to my opponent, incredibly skilled player, especially when I had a Sora Joe set up. He was dancing around that. I took the first game pretty luckily. I don't think my opponent was well set up and just didn't see the right pieces at the right time. And then game 2, he did find the right piece at the right time. Double Ice Wall. So I think this was about turn 6 when I was ready to push the game. He Ice Walled me, and then when I was waiting for my next turn in order to push the game, Ice Walled me again. He had 4 security, so I couldn't do that big push because I would have been doing the big push with Gabry and Lobomons, and spending the memory to do Gabry and Lobomon, that's like 5 memory right there. So I had to just wait out my opponent's attacks, hoping that my opponent couldn't sustain game on board. And then when he set up the Madoki Beatamons with the Gabry to bounce away my Mechanorimon, when he hit into Ice Walls in my security, the memory gain didn't work out. And then in the 3rd game, the final decider, I set up my Mechanorimons early again to lock out my opponent's rookies. There was a time where I set up an Octomon and my opponent wasn't going to be able to threaten it in any way. So when I started swinging my Octomon, I ran immediately into a Gabry in security. That was probably the turning point of the entire game. Because if that Octo was to survive, I would have been able to get 1 more hit in security. And then in a later turn, when I had 3 hits on board, I would have been able to do those 3 hits and then push out a Lobomon for game. So unfortunately, the big factor of that Octomon running into pretty much the only thing that can threaten an Octomon, being the Gabry or another Octomon. Actually, my Octomon was 8k because I had 8 cards in my hand, with the Devimon effect giving an extra 1000 DP to the Octomon. So the fact that Octomon ran into the Gabry was incredibly unlucky on my end. And had it survived, I would have been in a huge lead, getting out that extra security piece and putting my opponent in a really awkward position of having 3 security and if they were able to go into Gabry they would go to 1 security, which is really awkward for them because it just means I can push out a Rocky and then Lobomon them the game. Other than that, I didn't see any of my Ice Walls in my hand, even though I drew about half my deck, and none of them were my security. There was a time where I had 3 security left and they just promoted their Gabardond. It relied entirely on this. If there was, I think, a single Ice Wall in my security, then I would have had that game. But when he pushed out and hit with the Gabardond, they were all duds. Promise my opponent for still playing absolutely amazing. He deserved his 25th placing. Congrats on top 32. You absolutely deserve it. Had I just had the Octomon live or have an Ice Wall in my security or an Ice Wall in hand, I did the calculations and I would have made top 16. I would have made top 16 if I won that game. So, rather unfortunate the fact that I was at 22nd place and losing that match knocked me out of my top 32 position and put me in 48th. I would have really, really loved that match. It would have been really nice. And competing in top 16 as a content creator would have been absolutely mind-blowing. To have my face or have my name in that top 16 bracket. Oh, that would have been absolutely amazing. But it just wasn't in the dice. And while I feel like I had good luck on that day, it wasn't excellent. And unfortunately, I just didn't make the cut. But I'm not unhappy with my position as 48th place. I still get top 128 prizing, and I had a lot of fun. With my record of X21, I feel like I've proven myself to myself. It's a bit weird to say that. The sort of pressure you put onto yourself as a content creator to be a good player is a bizarre kind of thing to go through. But I feel like I've sort of made it. I don't know. It's hard to explain. But I'm really satisfied with the results I got out of this competition, and I couldn't really ask for anything more, except for maybe top 16. But congratulations, by the way, for all the Oceanic players in top 16, and for the winners of top 3, 2, and 1. Congratulations to those guys. I know a couple of you by seeing you guys play on Facebook and Discord, so yeah, I know they're excellent players and definitely deserve their spot. So with that, I think I might just go into my deck profile now.